Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be taking a look at Imperial Death Troopers for Star Wars Legion and kind of diving into synergies, builds, and just a closer look at the unit as a whole. Hopefully this will help newer players who may be intimidated a little bit by such a cool and awesome unit. Also, I want to thank Rainbow Starlight for sponsoring this video with their new game, Expansive Universe. If you haven't already, check out my gameplay preview of Expansive Universe. You can also find more about them in links in the description below. Big thanks to Rainbow Starlight for sponsoring this week's videos. Alright, so we're going to be talking about Imperial Death Troopers. Also, I do have the latest giveaway winner to announce at the end of the video. So if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribed and leave a comment to enter to win my giveaways. I do $25 Amazon gift card giveaways all the time. This one, I'm announcing the winner today. Another one will be starting up in a couple of days, so make sure you're entered to win those. So that being said, we got all the admin stuff out of the way. Well, almost. I do want to also mention the new masks. They are in the links right below for Teespring. They're awesome. We've got Boba Fett, Ahsoka, Darth Vader, as well as some Double Critical stuff for Double Critical Podcast. A lot of really cool stuff, so check that out. That also is another way to help support the channel. And if you guys are interested in Patreon as well, with some exclusive rewards for Patreon, there's links for that as well. And all of that stuff definitely helps out. So, and big thanks to my patrons as well. Alright, so let's talk about Imperial Death Troopers, because they are crazy awesome, right? This was like the first really super crazy Special Forces unit to hit the Empire, and of course, I think maybe one of the most requested units to ever show up in the game. As soon as Rogue One came out, everybody fell in love with these Death Troopers, and I know as soon as Legion came out, people were saying, when are we getting Death Troopers? When are we getting Death Troopers? And then, lo and behold, we finally did. And they have been pretty great ever since. As a matter of fact, maybe too good. They're very nasty. So we're gonna look at the basic unit card, and we're gonna talk about some different ways that you can equip them. We'll also talk about some different synergies that they have as far as with different commanders and even command cards and things that can help them out. Okay, so they cost 76 points. You're getting 4 minis in a unit. They're special forces. A little on the expensive side. 76 is not cheap, and especially when you look at heavy weapons, they're going to get more and more expensive. They can take heavy weapons, training, comm, equipment, a hard point, and also the grenades. And they've got 3 weapons built into them, which is actually pretty rare. You don't see that many units that have 3 built-in weapons, and so that's actually a really nice thing. There we got a red die for melee, which is actually pretty good. Usually you don't kind of want to have these guys in melee, but if you ever have to, it's a really nice option, especially if you're Darth Vader or whoever gets killed and you need somebody to go finish off Luke Skywalker, and all you got is these stormtroopers. Well, now you got somebody that can hit a little bit harder in melee, provided you still have enough Death Troopers left alive. If you are close, though, you can get double the dice by rolling 2 white with their SE-14 light blaster there. That's range 1 to 2. It's kind of tough to get into range 1 to 2, but it's not too bad. If you're farther out than that, you've got a solid black die at range 1 to 3, which is certainly better than the normal Stormtroopers get to roll. Now, their speed 2, they got both Surge to hit and Surge for defense. And Surge for defense is especially nice because they have red defense die, so this gives them much better defense than normal Stormtroopers, which have the red defense die but no Surge to defense. So now they have basically an extra 1 in 6 chance of blocking hits. They are 1 health per mini, but a whopping 2 courage, which is just generally really good, because it means they're a lot less likely to lose an action, especially when you start looking at their keywords. The first one being Disciplined 1. When they're issued an order, you may remove up to 1 suppression token. It means you don't have to remove a suppression token. If you've got maybe just 1 and you think you might get shot and you want to keep that extra cover from that, then go ahead. You're fine. You've got courage 2, so you're totally cool to do that. And so that much is great. They have Precise 2, which is a really nice ability, and it factors into so many things that they do. But Precise 2, much like Stormtroopers have Precise 1, this one lets you roll 2 additional dice when you spend an aim token. I want to point out that this only works if you're spending the aim token for its normal effect. So if you have something else that lets you spend an aim token for some additional effect, like Marksman, for example, it's not going to generate it's not going to trigger Precise. But it actually says that in the rules reference guide under marksman, but it's just important to know that. But yes, spending an aim token in this case is going to actually let you re-roll 4 dice, 2 for the aim and then 2 more for precise 2, which is really, really good. Now, granted, their dice are generally going to be pretty good, so you may not even need all 4 all of the time, but that's just super, super cool. Especially if you happen to get in a closer range and you're getting all those white dice, you're probably going to find yourself in a position where it's like, I got a huge attack pool here, and I'm gonna be able to make better use of that the more dice you can roll. And then they've got Ready 1. After you perform a standby action, gain an aim token. Now, this is pretty great because it factors directly in to precise 2, because hey, they can now take a standby. They get 2 aim tokens, so now they got 3 green tokens for a single action, and that is really, really cool. So they naturally are built to be able to move and hold, and just creeping forward. And at speed 2, they're not even moving that slow. So they can move forward and kind of secure a location and lock it down really well. Now, this is going to be really great depending on your terrain. If you have wide open terrain or only light cover or no line of sight blocking terrain, then they're not going to do as well because they do only have 1 health per mini, and they can die. They're not immune to pierce. Snipers are going to take them out very quickly. Snipers love to take out Death Troopers, and that's something that they're going to be doing against Death Troopers quite a bit. Your snipers always want to go for the Death Troopers, and so a lot of times people who are running Death Troopers may have some medics nearby to help pick up fallen Death Troopers, because Death Troopers are so expensive per mini that really is a helpful thing. Or Imperial Royal Guard to try and block some hits that are going towards Death Troopers is another thing that is sometimes a possibility. So those are things you want to protect your Death Troopers, and you want to try to keep them behind, at least heavy cover or at least line of sight blocking terrain if you can, until they're ready to shoot. But because they can extend their range, and with some of the cards we're going to see, they can eventually, a lot of times, outshoot people who are trying to shoot them. Not always snipers, but other longer range attacks. So let's look at some of the different things that we can put on them. First off is their config, right? You can run them with the E11D focused fire config, or you can run it with the E11D grenade launcher config. I always use the E11D focused fire config. I have never, not once in my entire career of playing this game, run the E11D grenade launcher config. Now, of course, you can flip it because it's a double-sided card. It's got reconfigure, so if you're going to recover, you can do that. Usually don't recover with Death Troopers because, hey, they have such a good time getting rid of strain. You don't usually have stuff that's exhausted that you have to recover. So recover is a very rare action with Death Troopers. So usually the one you deploy it on is the one you're going to stay on, usually. Not 100% of the time, but usually. And the thing is, they perform so well at long range that I just generally don't find myself with the need to, to take it off of the E11D focused fire config. Because now I've got a range 4 attack. Everybody can use this. Yes, I realize that if you exhaust this particular card, then you're going to be in that position to maybe want to recover. But I just would rather stay on this one. Now, if you're in the grenade launcher config, you're getting blast. Blast is a good keyword, but at the same time, though, you're only getting 1 die, and you could just run. You could, if you wanted to run this. Right, you may not want to have everybody shoot this weapon. You may want to have, maybe at least just one guy shoot this weapon and give the attack pool a blast, and then you can roll the extra whites, because a lot of times you're going to have that aim token, and you're going to be able to re-roll 4 dice. And if you're rolling all reds, well, then your aim token goes to waste. So it's like it's sometimes it's worth a little bit of a gamble, because look, let's go back to the basic unit. At range 1 to 2, you've got 2 white dice, so you've got a much higher ceiling if you're rolling the white dice. So a lot of times, if you're doing that, I'm only going to have one guy roll the red, and this is assuming that I have the aim token. If I don't have the aim token, then sure, it's probably a better bet to go with that red die. But I am also, this is my own bias here, I'm the type of player that I'd love to roll a big, giant, 2 hands full of white dice and then count up all the crits that I hopefully got. But that's just me. So I generally prefer the E11D, because if I get close enough, I'd rather roll the double whites, especially because I'm usually going to have an aim. But the real beauty of this is that it's got suppressive, so you can, when you got to put a lot of suppression on people, whether it's tauntauns or an enemy commander that's getting close or something like that, you really need to deny somebody an action. Suppressive is just a great keyword and something that the Empire really plays to its strength in kind of slowing down other people and just kind of keeping them from doing more than one action per turn. So I really like the 11D focus fire config personally, but either way, it's 8 points, and you pick which way you want to start it with. I like to keep my Death Troopers far away from enemies so that I don't start losing miniatures too early in the game, and that's just another reason why I always start an E11D focus fire config, because it allows me to be a threatening force from range 4. And or even range 5, because you could always then move and then shoot, and that's, so it keeps you safe and keeps you deadly at quite a range. So that's why I like this one a little bit better. But that being said, this one can always be an option. There's nothing wrong with rolling a red die and they're getting blast, because effectively blast, if you're shooting into somebody that's got heavy cover, blast is effectively 2 extra damage on top of that. So it's not bad. It's not bad. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is our heavy weapons. And this is another reason why I like the focus fire config, because the DLT 19 Delta. You've seen this guy. He's expensive. He is expensive, but he's incredible. 2 red and a white. Impact 1. A lot of times I'm not even shooting at armor, right? But 2 red and a white from this guy. 34 points. But he's range 1 to 4. 2 red and a white at range 4. Combine that with everybody else rolling a black, you've got a really strong range 4 shot right now. You're rolling 7 dice when you use this, and it's suppressive. Or you can split fire, right? Let's talk about split fire for just a moment. This unit can split fire in so many ways. Add that heavy weapon at range 4. Add our config, right? You can have 5 enemies here, okay? You can have 5 different weapons. You can split fire 5 different ways and put out 6 suppression with a single shot, with a single attack action, I should say. Now, this is assuming that you have grenades equipped and you have an enemy at range 1. But if, in theory, out of your 5 guys, you can have your heavy weapon fire. You can have one dude use the suppressive attack. You can have one dude use the 11D blaster rifle. You can have one dude use the SE-14, and then one dude use a grenade. Like, just insanity. Like, if they're incredible, and like this is kind of like the Death Blossom option, where you can, if you happen to have them in the right spot, you can really split fire a number of ways, and it's just another way that they can really put out a ton of suppression. Now, that's not always the thing you want to do. Sometimes you want to focus down a unit, but this is something that just kind of depends on playstyle. There's really a lot of value in suppressing people, especially if they're close to panicking, because that can be a total game changer. All right, so again, DLT 19D is good for all things. It's good for splitting fire, because, hey, if you're just going to take 1 mini off and split fire, well, that's 3 dice. At least that's going to be 2 hits. I mean, you've got offensive surge. Even without spending your aim on this, that's going to be 2 hits, at least, if not 3. All right, so the DLT 19 Delta, just a great mini. And it was definitely when Death Troopers came out, this was the one I took pretty much all the time. But we've got DT F16. Now, DT F16 on the surface doesn't look as great. He's got less dice. He's got less range. He's leader, which is, okay, that's kind of cool. He's less likely to get killed. But, I mean, he doesn't have that range 4 attack. And, okay, he's got a black and a white, which I guess at range 3 is normally more. But if you're going with that, if you're going with your config and doing the range 4 shot, well, he then only gets to add 1 black. So he's like, he doesn't seem all that great. I mean, he's okay, right? If you look at his firepower. That's if you're only looking at his firepower. First off, he is also cheaper. He's only 22 points, right? So cheaper, that's great. But compel is such a strong keyword, and a lot of people missed this, I think, on the first pass, or a lot of new players may not realize just how strong compel is. So compel is after another friendly unit at range 1 to 2 rallies. If it's suppressed but not panicked, it may gain a suppression token to perform a free move action. Okay, what this means is, especially if you're on other Courage 2 units, or any other Stormtrooper that has the leader mini that increases their courage, or anybody who happens to have more than 2 courage, but they can, they lost an action? No problem if they lost an action. No problem whatsoever, because they can just take one more suppression and then do a free move. Since in those cases, a lot of times somebody wanted to move and shoot anyway, or move and claim, or something like that. It basically lets you ignore suppression. If you can keep this guy centrally located, you can potentially ignore suppression for your entire army. The first time I really witnessed the insane power of someone like this was with high courage commanders, Darth Vader or Emperor Palpatine. Darth Vader as a commander. Hey, the stormtroopers can't panic, right? They can't panic. So if you've got DT F-16 or F-16, depending on which you want, tomato, well, now they also can't become suppressed. I mean, they're technically suppressed, but they're not going to lose in action because they can always just take another suppression and move. Honestly, think about that. Imagine your entire Imperial army is immune to panic, and then also immune to losing in action, because they can always, granted, we can always take that free move from compel, as long as they take another suppression. And hey, what in the heck does suppression hurt? You can't panic. You got Darth Vader. Now, obviously, this becomes a house of cards. So if you do lose your commander, then all those guys that have like 7 or 8 suppression, are going to panic eventually. But DTF-16, if you do lose your commander, well, he can be nominated as your new commander. Death Troopers already have a courage value of 2, so that means at least somebody would at least have to have 4 suppression. So he's a great fill-in as a makeshift commander if you do lose your commander. So that's another thing. And Compel is one of the things that made Krennic so good. But if you're not running Krennic, definitely consider running DTF F-16, because amazing backup as a commander, and just an amazing ability to support your unit overall. Now, if your commander's only courage value 2, then this one kind of goes down a little bit. For anybody who's courage value 3 or above, it makes it nearly impossible for suppression to actually negatively impact your unit if they're close enough to this guy. Targeting scopes, we're looking at some upgrades here. I think some people might want to consider targeting scopes at first, because they'll think, hey, well, I could get precise 3, because yes, this will stack. But I'd kind of lean away from that, because at this point, I think you're going a little bit overkill. It's rare that you're going to really need to re-roll 5 dice with these guys. There are cases where it's going to happen, but considering what you could be putting in its place, I don't see you really needing to have that many aims or have that many dice re-rolled at a time, because you're going to eventually make an attack where you only get 1 or 2 bad dice, and you're like, oh man, I really wasted that targeting scopes. Granted, it's not going to be all the time, and dice can be fickle. So if you really want to ensure that your dice aren't that bad, I could see running targeting scopes just to try it out, but I think after you try it out once or twice, you'll realize it's overkill and you don't need it, because at that point you're kind of wasting the natural precise 2 that they already have. So I think you're better off moving on to something else, like emergency stims. Emergency stims is great on these guys, especially for late game. If you're able to hide them early in the game and then move them out to really finish off a unit midway through the game, this can buy you an extra turn, which, again, Death Troopers are really strong, but they only have 1 health each. And, again, Pierce can totally destroy them, right? So, or wait till the last round. They're worth so many points, especially if your leader is about to get killed or whatever. If you can pop this on turn 6, and just manage to keep him from getting eliminated, you save yourself over 100 points. As far if it comes down to points. So emergency stim is a really solid option if you're investing a lot of points into your Death Troopers. For comms, comms relay is not a terrible option, because if you're running him with Krennic, it's definitely an option, because you get that free order with Krennic. You get the issued order, you can pass it. Now this was changed a little bit to be non-emplacement trooper only. So like a lot of people were doing this whole comms relay on the shore troopers, or rather on the mortar that came with the shore troopers and all that. So comms relay got changed a little bit, but I could see maybe doing that. Not necessarily the greatest thing ever, but HQ uplink can be a really nice one, especially if you're not running someone like Krennic. If you're running Death Troopers alone, and you really want to make sure that you can activate them last, I could see doing HQ uplink. Although I don't think comm is something that's really mandatory. I don't think you really need to run that. Grenades, I don't run grenades on Death Troopers. They do come with fragmentation grenades and like in the air expansion, but I don't run any grenades on them. I know I was talking about you could split fire 5 ways. I think that's also something that's a little bit overkill. Splitting fire 4 ways is plenty good. That's plenty good enough. So generally I don't run grenades on them. I don't like getting that close. I usually like to keep them at range 3 and or 4, and that's generally how I tend to run them because they are so deadly at range 4. Now, here's where we get into the really interesting ones. So for training, I gotta say Hunter's a really, really good option here. A really good option because this is synergizing. First off, Hunter's a good option all the time. Anybody who can take Hunter is great. It doesn't work on 100% of units though, because here's the thing with Hunter. They have to be wounded. And it's only on troopers too. So this is going to work if you're attacking a tank or something like that. But you have to be attacking a trooper unit. And they have to be wounded. Now, here's the thing. If you're attacking, let's say, a unit of rebel troopers, and they've lost a miniature, well, that's great. They're not wounded. To be wounded, you have to have a wound token on you. And that is, I get that it's a strange distinction. Like, oh, well, I'm attacking, I'm attacking some rebel troopers, and I've already shot them twice and killed 2. Well, they're not wounded. Hunter is primarily going for big health things. Maybe Wookiees that happen to have a damage on them, or you're going for an enemy Luke Skywalker who you've already shot once. Right now they have a wound token on them. Now they're counted as wounded. But this is really good when you are going for those high value targets because you get a free aim token. You don't have to do anything. They just have to have been wounded already. So and considering that an aim token is so much better on a Death Trooper because they can reroll 4 dice out the gate, Hunter's a really, really solid option for them. Another option might be Overwatch. Overwatch is just naturally built into their ability to want to stand by and get that free aim token, and it extends it out to range 3. Honestly, standby, if anybody who really wants to use standby, they kind of have to have Sentinel. Standby at range 1 to 3 is pretty much the de facto way to play standby. If you're in standby and you're only going to range 2, it's so easy for somebody to just shoot you, give you a suppression, and knock you out of standby. It's just so easy. Also, I want to go back and mention something else about Hunter. There's not a limit to how many times this can trigger. And so we're talking about splitting fire earlier. If there's multiple wounded units, you can potentially split fire. I'll have this one guy use this gun, shoot your Wookiee. Poof, all right, I got an aim token. I'm not going to spend it there. I'm going to have this other guy now, or all the rest of them, shoot your Luke Skywalker. Oh, I get another aim token. Now I have 2 aim tokens. I'm going to spend both of them on this one attack to really try and take down Luke. So that's like a cool thing that you can do. So Hunter and Overwatch were primarily the 2 that I was using when Death Troopers had just come out. But now we have a new one called Offensive Push. Well, it's not that new, but it's certainly a little bit newer. I think is a really cool option for Death Troopers. And it is an exhaustible, so if you are thinking about using Recover with them, that's an option. But I think this one's really cool for Death Troopers for a specific reason. And I'm going to paint you a little picture of a scenario. Okay, so when you're performing a move, you can exhaust this and gain Tactical 1, which after you do your move, you gain an aim token. Basically, as long as you move, you can tap this and get an aim token. I say tap, right? Exhaust is technically the keyword. And it's cheap. It's cheap too, so that's great. Granted, if you're splitting fire, you're not going to be able to get multiple aims off of this, but usually that's not the case. Usually you just need the 1 aim token. Here's why I love this one. I went to a Prime with a Death Trooper list not that long ago, and I was running Death Troopers, and I was running Krennic, and I would run Krennic's 2 pip card, which you can give people standby. And I would sometimes play that the first round. When you're set up across from somebody, a lot of times you're just outside of range 3, or sometimes you're far enough and you're like, oh, they're just outside of range 4. I'm safe from these Death Troopers. You'll measure range like, oh, we're range 5. We're safe. I'm like, yeah, you think you're safe. And so I would play Krennic's 2 pip on the very first turn, which people wouldn't expect, giving them a standby. Now, why would I want a standby when we're so far away? Only so that I could get an aim before the round even started. Which means if I went first, and a 2-pip, you have a decent chance of going first. So if I went first, I could take that Death Trooper who has an aim already, ignore the standby, throw it away. move forward and shoot. So I will be able to move and shoot with an aim. And then I can exhaust my range 4, whatever, use my DLT or something like that, and get a huge dice pool right away. And in the case that I had shore troopers with a mortar that was deployed farther forward, I could potentially even fire support from the mortar onto the Death Trooper attack, and now I've got an aim for 4 dice, and that's why, if you're using mortars with your Death Troopers, if you're combining shore troopers with your Death Troopers and the mortar that can be attached to the shore troopers, you can get really, really big dice pools. And now's where the precise ability really kicks in, because you're adding extra white dice. And the bigger the dice pool you have, the more you can. Anyway, I'm painting a really complex picture here, but the point is, with offensive push, I now don't have to run Krennic's 2-pip on the first turn. I can just deploy them wherever I want and get that free aim baked in first turn. So if I want to get that alpha strike, and sometimes that's really important, if you can eliminate one unit right off the bat the first turn, well, now you've got a points advantage, and now that might be a tiebreaker for you, and if nothing else, you really messed up your opponent's day. So I love the idea of being able to move and get it, and either take a unit off the board first turn, or at least cripple a unit first turn. And offensive push on the Death Troopers can possibly enable that, although it's cheap, so you're probably only going to be able to use it once in a game unless you want to waste an action and recover. But you might find yourself that in a situation where you're hiding, waiting for like turn 4 to roll around so you can really move in, and you might have time to be able to do that. But I like offensive push in that aspect, and I will definitely be taking offensive push with Death Troopers in the future. All right, so obviously, let's talk about synergies. They obviously work with Krennic. Krennic has Entourage Imperial Death Troopers, so even if you've got 3 special forces already, you can add a Death Trooper, ignoring the limit. But also, Entourage means he can pass them a token, so he can issue one in order. So actually, it works pretty well if you're not running special forces. You want just 1 special forces, Krennic can just hand him, so you never have to worry about accidentally pulling a special forces. So that much is really nice. And also, that also helps them get rid of suppression. Again, that courage thing is a big deal for them. Although if you are running Krennic, you're only going to have courage of 2. So, that's just something to think about. But Krennic he was kind of made for them. I think Veers can be a fun option if you're running multiple Death Troopers. Again, with Spotter 2, you can hand out some free aim tokens. If you want, I like the idea of maybe 2 Death Troopers, maybe 2 Shore Troopers and 2 Mortars, and having those Death Troopers be able to take advantage of Veers' free aims, then fire support with the Mortars. Lots and lots of chaos ensues. I think it could be a beautiful thing. I think that could be fun. And so I like Veers for that aspect. That could be pretty cool. We've got the Tactical Strike. The Tactical Strike is Iden Versio's 3-pip, and this one is so cool. Now, I don't have Iden Versio yet, but of course, a lot of people do. but yes, that's because I pre-ordered. So Iden Versio, or a friendly Special Forces unit that has a face-up order token, activates. It may reduce its maximum speed to 1, but it also will gain steady and tactical 1. Now, I feel like this card looks like it was made for Inferno Squad, although we haven't had a full preview of Inferno Squad yet. But these would work amazing on Death Troopers. I would love to see Iden Versio commanding a group of 3 units of Death Troopers. Oh my god, look at this card. Tactical 1, it gives you that aim. You're good, you got the aim. Steady. You can shoot for free after moving. Oh my goodness. This is gorgeous, right? So, now granted, you're only going to be speed 1 in this case, but that's okay. I mean, imagine this as a first turn play, right? 3, because first off, it's a 3-pip, it's giving out 4 orders, and it just has to be troopers, so it can be special forces. I think I'm guessing that this is made for Inferno Squad. I'm going to guess that we'll probably find ourselves in a situation where maybe you run a fully loaded Inferno Squad and 2 units of Death Troopers and Iden Versio, and then kind of fire off this card. We'll see if I'm right. I have a feeling if they put Inferno Squad on the art, that'll be a thing. But I think Death Troopers are going to pair very, very, very well with this card. It's just that pretty. And then, of course, Annihilation looms. It comes with Krennic. We already talked about Krennic. I think it's a really, really nice card to just, in general because you control when it happens. But even if you have to do this, like it's great for like turn 5 or 6, and if you can make people panic. But it's also kind of cool if you have to do it early game just to deny. To hopefully deny actions. Like I'd love to run Annihilation Looms turn 1. Especially if we're racing towards a point, just because I'm hoping that like, hey, my Death Troopers are going to be able to shrug this off and not even care. But also, to slow down all those Rebel Troopers, all those Courage 1 units that my opponent might have that are trying to also race, because now they have a pretty good chance of only being able to move once and not move twice. So, I like that. And of course, Death Troopers are working very well in a suppression heavy list because they have such an easy time dealing with suppression. And I think Coordinated Fire, this is a generic. This works in just about any list. Is a great command card to, of course, it's going to work well if you have a lot of troopers, but if you're incorporating Death Troopers into that list, those troopers can potentially help give extra aims to the DTs, and the DTs do love aims. And, of course, deploy the Garrison. This is the one that I was talking about earlier. It's just a great way to get those Death Troopers a free standby. This one is going to work a little bit better if you've given them Sentinel, but at the same time, you don't need to be using them to standby. If you just want to make sure they have extra aims, it is an option. New things have come out since this the Krennic expansion that this is less of a huge thing, but this is still good at face value for also giving out standbys, because don't forget, when Death Troopers get a standby, they also get an aim. So really, really cool card for making them very versatile. But of course, if it's got the picture of the Death Trooper on the card, you can already assume it's going to be great. So hopefully this helped you guys out a little bit with some ways to look at approaching Death Troopers. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments section. We've got a winner to announce, so I want to congratulate subscriber Blindfire Googly Eyes. You just won a $25 Amazon gift card. Just go ahead and shoot me an email and back end of my channel or on the about page of Crabbok.com. And I will get your contact information and we'll get you squared away. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Big thanks to my patrons. Also, check out the merch in the description below. We've got some new masks, all kinds of cool stuff. Gotta love that stuff. Cool stuff. All right, guys, that's all I got. I want to thank you all so much for watching. And if you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to click that bell for alerts and all the good stuff. I want to thank you so much. And as always, have a great day.